This is a document that got leaked in the last week or so.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's it's a public document. As long as if you live in Minnesota, you can go to the courthouse and request this. And so
Yep.
basically that's how we're assuming it got out. It could be somebody that actually worked
Mhm.
at the court office or whatever, hates Nick and put this out, but whatever it is, this is a publicly obtainable legal document that you can get. Um, and I'm just gonna go through it, and it has a little bit of information about the Nick's arrest that day.
Oh boy, that's gonna be
Um,
interesting.
so Alicia Sweep is mentioned in here. She's the Health and Human Services for Kandiyohi County, or KCHHS. And then
Hmm.
Don Weber and John Mueller are Nick and Kayla's lawyers.
Okay.
Some of this stuff is just boring. It's not that, that's why I skipped part of it.
Yeah.
And like
No,
the
for
stuff that's
sure.
grayed out, that's boring. But we're just going to get the good parts out of this. So, ex parte hold on order for hearing. The children were placed on a law enforcement hold. The date of removal is May 23rd, 2024. The facts that warranted removal of the children from the caregiver on an ex parte emergency basis are as follows. On May 23rd, 2024, law enforcement officers from the Kandiyohi County Sheriff's Office executed a search warrant at the family residence. During the search, narcotics and drug paraphernalia were located. The parents were placed under arrest, and the law enforcement officers placed the children on a law enforcement hold. Continued EPC hearing and emergency protective care hearing was scheduled to be held May 28th. At that time, the parents motioned to continue the hearing for good cause. The court found good cause to continue the EPC hearing to protect the rights of the parties. Health and Human Services received a report involving Mr. and Mrs. Rekieta on May 23rd. The report was that law enforcement was going to the home of Mr. and Mrs. Rekieta to execute a search warrant. Upon executing the warrant, the law enforcement officers found over 26 grams of cocaine, ketamine, drug paraphernalia, firearms, and ammunition in the home. Miss Sweep, the HHS employee, went to the family home while the search was ongoing. At that time, she learned the home was very cluttered. It was difficult to walk around the home without stepping on clothing, bedding, or blankets. We talked about that before. Like, there's just starting
Hmm.
from the laundry room, just a mess throughout the house, so you can barely walk through it, according to Aaron from Steel Toe.
The thing is I could totally picture what that house looks like. I just bet you it's just filthy. I bet you there's dishes everywhere and trash laying around and just a bunch of
Well, yeah,
random
it's a
shit
little
they don't
drug den.
use. Yeah, exactly. They ain't cleaning up.
No, no. Um, yeah, four of the children were present at the home when Miss Sweep arrived. The oldest kid was not there. After being placed, and I just censored their names and stuff here. That's what those boxes are.
Yep.
After being placed out of the home, children were subject to hair follicle drug testing. All of the children, except for the 9-year-old daughter, tested negative. His 9-year-old daughter tested positive for cocaine in her system at a level of over 5,000 with a cutoff of 500. So basically, 500 is where it's considered like a positive test. That's the cutoff. And
Yep.
she had 10 times that amount of cocaine in her system, according to this hair
Jesus
follicle test.
Christ. That's terrible. That means they were just leaving it out and she probably got into it.
Yeah, probably. That's what it seems like because she's the only one. But it's fucking wild. Like there's no redemption for this guy. There's no
No.
you can't spin this. Like
If
he's
you
done.
let your 9-year-old daughter do cocaine, like she might be fucked for life because she has obviously she's probably gotten high off cocaine at least a couple times. Maybe she ingested it, and I don't think that would get you high. But like still, the fact that like she's put those terrible chemicals in her body at a very young age cannot be good, like at all. That's got to be like one of the worst things possible for a developing brain.
Well, if you just eat the cocaine, I'm pretty sure you would get high off of that because a lot of the time people will just gum it. You just like take a swipe of
That's
it and put
true.
it in your gums and it absorbs like that. So I would think if you ate it, maybe it's not as good, but it's gonna get in your bloodstream. I would think just the
Yep,
same. But
that's true.
Nick's excuse, or not even excuse, but his comment on this was, if it was over 5,000, I mean, she could be dead from that. That's his
That's
defense. Oh,
that
okay.
makes it worse. That
Yeah,
means
I
you
guess that's
acknowledge how
supposed to
bad it
make it
is.
unbelievable to us that it's at that level, but we've seen you like spiraling.
Like
It's
you were
completely
fucked up.
believable.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's ridiculous. That was his defense. Like, okay, well, it's still believable because of what we've seen and how much is taken out of the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Not the defense you thought it was, bro. Not at all.
No.
Mr. and Mrs. Rekieta each submitted to a hair follicle drug test through Minnesota Monitoring on May 30th. However, HHS has not received the results of those tests because subsequent to taking those tests, Mr. and Miss Rekieta revoked their releases of information. So they took the initial drug test, but now they're saying you can't get the results
How
because
can they?
they'll be incriminating. Basically, they're that. I mean, that's the assumption. Why else wouldn't you want that out there?
Yeah.
But so they now because they're doing this, their kids cannot go back home. That they this bare minimum is that they have to take the drug tests and pass to get their kids back, and they're
Okay.
not even willing to have the tests actually published,
No,
the results.
I was gonna ask why that, like, how they would be allowed to do that if they required the drug test, but it sounds like it's just a requirement to get their kids back, and they're not even willing to do that. Like, that's insane. They just don't want to incriminate themselves. They care more about that, it seems like.
Yeah, yeah, it really seems like they care more about themselves than their kids, just straight up.
That's fucked up, man. That's not how parents should be. Like you were the ones who fucked up, and like, I mean, maybe it's for the best. I mean, they don't really seem like the best parents, anyways. But like, it's still really sad. Like, I don't know what. I'm sure it's better than whatever system they're in. Or maybe they have family taking care of them. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, I've heard conflicting things. I've heard that they're in foster care, but I've also heard that they're with the grandparents. Um, I think
which
the
is not a bad
grandparents thing is what
option.
I've heard more recently, but I
Okay,
don't know, and I haven't heard anything all that convincing in either way so far.
no, that makes sense.
Um,
I was
because
gonna. Sorry,
oh, and
go
because
ahead.
it will say in here, it will mention foster, but I've
Okay,
heard a lawyer say that fostered, like that term in this sense, can be used to refer to grandparents or aunts or uncles or
that's
something
true.
like that.
That makes sense. Yeah, but I was gonna say, like, keeping your kids in the foster care system, like the actual foster care system's fucked up. That's like a terrible, terrible, terrible system in this country.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just so that what you can do more drugs.
That's what it seems
Pretty
like.
pathetic. Uh,
Very.
but because the releases have been revoked, HHS has been unable to monitor the parents through additional drug testing. Miss Sweep went to the home on May 28th. She was allowed into the home, but she was not allowed access to the parents' bedroom. The GAL is in agreement that it is in the best interest of the children to remain in out-of-home placement at this time. Surroundings or conditions. The children are in surroundings or conditions that endanger the children's health, safety, or welfare, requiring responsibility for the children's care and custody to be immediately assumed by KCHHS.
Jeez. That's really bad. Like you got like what do you say to like recover from that? I don't think there's even such of a thing.
No, no. He's a full on degenerate.
Yep.
Contrary to welfare and best interests children out of home, it is in the best interest of the children for care, custody, and control of the children to remain within HHS for the purpose of placement with a suitable foster care provider. Continued custody of the children by the parents is contrary to the welfare of the children. The placement proposed by HHS is in the children's best interest. In making this finding, the court relies upon the best interest factors considered by HHS, okay, according to their rules. Um, the children are to remain in foster care until the parents can provide safe environment demonstrated through substantial compliance with the case plan and by correcting the conditions which have led to out-of-home placement. The placement proposed by the agency is the least restrictive and most home-like setting that meets the needs of the children. Given the particular circumstances of the children and the family at the time of the children's removal, there were no services or efforts available that could have allowed the children to safely remain in the home. HHS is providing reasonable efforts to reunify the children with their parents and to prevent the need for further out of home placement. However, those efforts have been hampered by the parents because the parents have revoked releases for the drug tests, have not been submitting to drug testing, and have not allowed HHS full access to the home. They still have not seen the bedroom, it sounds like.
Oh jeez.
The parents shall each submit to a chemical use assessment and shall follow all recommendations. The parents shall abstain from the use and possession of mood altering substances except as prescribed by a medical professional. The parents shall each submit to chemical testing of any type at the request of HHS and or the gal to verify abstinence. The parents shall assign all necessary releases of information. The parents shall sign releases of information again.
Jeez.
um, HHS shall file an out-of-home placement plan and provide it to the parties and foster care providers within 30 days of the court order placing the children in foster care, an order for protective care, or order transferring legal custody to HHS, whichever is earliest. The out-of-home placement plan shall be filed no later than June 22nd. Family time. The terms of parental and sibling visitation pending further proceedings are visitation between the parents and children shall be supervised at a supervised safety center or supervised at the HHS building by a member of HHS staff. So they can't even see their kids unless it's in a supervised building with a actual person supervising them. Like, that's how untrusted he is with his own children.
That's pretty sad, man. Like that's normally what you do. Like if like you're like convicted of a violent crime, like that's insane. That like that's how untrusting they are of him. Like that's actually crazy. But I mean, drugs. The fact that they had drugs in their system and the girl had drugs in her system, I think that's honestly warranted. That is still insane to me.
Yeah, yeah. Like, if your kid has 5 times or 10 times the amount of cocaine in their system needed to um, register as positive on the test, there's no excuse. That's not an accidental amount, and even that wouldn't be excusable. It's like, oh, I forgot and left it out, and she got into it one time or something. It's not what happened.
No, that's actually crazy. Like, there's just so much proof of neglect and like obviously like how would you not be able to tell your daughter was fucked up at least at one point? That means they were always fucked up.
Oh yeah, of course they were always fucked up. I mean, you could see it on his stream. He was gone every day, and to the point, there's no way he could be a parent to them. Like, if you're drunk hours and hours of the day, you can't, you know, pick your kid up if there's an emergency and somebody else falls through or something, or somebody needs to go to the doctor. Just completely unequipped to deal with that all day. And yeah,
Yep.
he deserves to get his kids taken away. He's a danger
Yeah,
to
and
them.
he is a danger to them, and it's really too bad because I feel like if he just actually like because remember he said he's in the last segment we did he was just talking about how he could how he just quit and how easy it was for him. Well, then how come he doesn't just do that to get his kids back? Like how come he won't submit to the drug test then?
Yeah, yeah. If you quit cold turkey, why not take the test? That could only help you. And cocaine only stays in your body for like 2, 3 days at the most.
Really? Like, maybe he's worried about other stuff, but, like, still, like, there's no way he's sober. Like, I don't know, like, what because I feel like they wouldn't even really care if it was marijuana that much, and, I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, 'cause we're in Minnesota, which is a legalized state, so, I mean, that shouldn't be a concern unless there's harder drugs that stay in your system longer that he's worried about testing for.
Because they did mention ketamine in there. A study published in the International Journal of Legal Medicine found that ketamine can be detected in hair up to 4 months after a single dose, but pretty sure these are piss tests. They're doing them
True.
regularly or whatever.
Yeah, because they just wanna prove that they're not using actively is the main concern. Like, obviously, they know they were using drugs 4 months ago. That's a good point, though. He never said he was quitting drugs, he said he was quitting alcohol. He never once mentioned quitting drugs in his video.
Yeah, well, and he's a liar. What it doesn't matter what he says anyway. He also said early on that he dumped all of his alcohol down the drain, but then later on he said that he just moved it into his other house.
Yeah, yeah, he's all it takes is a quick drive over to his other house, and then he has all of his booze
He doesn't even
back.
have to drive there. They're right next to each other. They're neighbor properties.
What's the point of having 2 houses right next to each other? That seems a little pointless.
For your swinger friends to live in. I
I
don't
mean, I
know.
guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess if it was like an investment property and you rent it or something, or for what you said, but like, yeah, it just seems a little weird to have 2 houses right next to each other. Seems a little pointless unless you're Airbnb-ing it or renting it to someone long term.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was just making good money. Didn't want neighbors when they, went to move out, and I mean, honestly, I could see him wanting to have that for all of the swinging sorts of things that he wanted to do. Just keep
That's
that
true.
somewhat away from the kids.
Which I guess that's better than not keeping it away from the kids, but it's still not a good look. I'm sure they still know what's going on. Like, you know what
Yeah,
I
well, because
mean?
you could also just actually be a parent instead of that. So,
Yeah, yeah,
these marginal differences don't count for more when you're effectively not parenting your children.
yeah, yeah. No, 100%. No, that's interesting. It's really funny that he has two houses right next to each other. And he thought that would keep his self control from alcohol in check. Like literally, like, are you are you kidding me, man? That's way different than dumping it down the drain.
Yeah, he can't tell the truth to save his life. He can't take care of his kids to save his or their lives. Just can't be bothered to do anything but fuck and do drugs, just succumb to his urges.
I shouldn't even laugh, but I'm the king of nervous laughter. It's just so fucked up, man. Like it's like, come on, like what are you thinking? What's going through your mind that you think that like you can just like have kids and then just yeah, actually I just want to do these things instead and never be a parent. And like even if he was gonna do that, they should have at least hired a full time caretaker for those kids. It's the least they could have done, like the bare minimum. And I'm still not
Well, they did
justifying
have a
it.
nanny. They had a nanny for a while, I think for years, but she quit. I think within the last year or so because it got too crazy.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't want a nanny for 5 kids that are probably really neglected by their parents.